Hey, what is up, my YouTubian subscribers? Secured here to do my second ever character discussion video. This time, Adam Taurus. Now, basically, there's gonna be two spoilers. One for the Vulture's backstory in Spider-Man: Homecoming. The other for Killmonger's backstory in Black Panther. Both movies are really, really good. If you haven't watched Black Panther, I would recommend you watch it. You still probably got a couple of weeks before it's taken out of theaters. It comes out on in Blu-ray in May or June, I believe they announced it. So you probably got a couple, maybe a month more before it gets taken out of theaters. I'd recommend you go watch it right now because it's one of the best Marvel movies, easily in my top five. I would maybe top seven if I was really, really downgrading. That being said, Spider-Man: Homecoming, just watch it. Spider-Man's my favorite character of all time, so yeah, if you haven't watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, it's been out for over a year now. Watch it, because you'll enjoy it. Now, on with the show. Now, basically, Adam Taurus very, very much represents all the things wrong with Ruby writing. You have a character whose power level is radically inconsistent in the sense that he goes from slicing off Yang. First off, his semblance is seemingly infinitely stronger than Yang's, in the sense that Yang, it takes a lot of energy for Yang to hit back really, really hard, whereas Adam absorbs two bullets and then can slice through Yang's arm like a hot knife through butter. But that's not important. What's important is he takes down two huntresses who we've seen fight very, very well in Blake and Yang. Now, there was extraneous circumstances in both in the fights. Blake, because she was fighting a former lover and was apparently was very scared. She looked very scared, in my opinion. And Yang, because she blind charged him and got one shot. The problem is that he one shot Yang and then gets one shotted by Blake using her semblance, and it's just a hot mess how he gets one shotted by Blake. Then you have radically different personalities. He goes from very, very calm, cool, collected to freaking out, so much so that Corsic and Finnick are able to just say maybe we should plan for another leader. And then it's just all those issues. Those are small issues that are compounded onto the fact that the Faunus storyline is hot trash. Now, if you don't know, the Faunus storyline is easily my least favorite storyline in the series. Now, I've shat on Raven as the Spring Maiden. Don't get me wrong. I hate Raven as the Spring Maiden. But Raven as the Spring Maiden, you'll have to deal with it maybe once or twice. Period. Raven isn't going to show up in the next volume, just not going to fucking happen. If you're expecting it, she's not. No, it's not going to happen, so we don't have to deal with it. Do I agree with it? No. I think it destroys the lore behind the Maidens. I think it's the single worst thing they've put to pen. It's the worst thing they've put to paper so far in the series, and that's saying something because they've given Osprey Magic and Ruby Silver Eyes and never addressed those two things. But yeah, Raven is but here's the thing. I'd rather deal with 10 Raven as the Spring Maiden moments than deal with Blake's one consistent storyline across, and she's the main character, so you deal with her across an entire volume consistently. And that's my biggest issue. Yeah, there are technically worse storylines in the series, but because the Faunus have such a large presence in the series due to Blake, we end up in a situation where Blake's storyline is easily the worst storyline ever put to paper in the series. And because Adam's so intrinsically linked to Blake's storyline, his storyline is ruined by Blake, by the fact that we can't really relate or understand why Blake does what she does, and that goes even further for Adam, an unstable psychopath. But why does he act the way he acts? That's the question that never gets answered, and that's a question that, when it's answered, probably won't be satisfying, because he's a villain and they seem content on not making the villains relatable or understandable in any single way. Now, does the villain need to be relatable or understandable to be a good villain? No. The Joker is a perfect, but actually, the villain doesn't need to be relatable, but he does need to be understandable. He or she The Joker is a perfect example of this. The Joker has a higher kill count than any other single Earthbound supervillain, and he's a human with guns. But you understand where he's coming from. You understand how he relates to Batman, and his relationship to Batman is what makes the Joker a compelling, understandable villain. They both had that one bad day. They both looked into the abyss, and the Joker blinked. The Joker let the one bad day get to him. The one bad day shapes him for the rest of his life. He's bound and determined to make sure everyone has that one bad day that made him into a supervillain. Adam, we don't get that because they're content on. Here's the thing: they say that the Faunus are oppressed, but never show that the Faunus are oppressed, and that's my biggest issue. And yeah, that's that. We have Faunus huntresses in Blake, Velvet, Neon Cat, Leo Lionheart. The Neon Cat in particular is a trusted member of the Atlas military program, trusted enough to be one of their representatives. Their second representative is their killbot Penny Palladina. So they like so very 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 sketch how supposedly the most racist kingdom is gonna let a Faunus be one of their representatives. I don't like you end up with Leo Lionheart's a freaking headmaster. Yeah, I know I'm gonna mediocrity. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna just address mediocrity here because he has a problem with the Faunus attacking a Faunus-led institution. Now, the Faunus are basically the White Fang are terrorists. At this point, they're very very thin analogies to to things like Black Lives Matter and their riots. But I would even go so one step further and say no, that's not. I'd say that they're more representative to Islamic terrorism in the Middle East, where it doesn't matter, they'll hurt you no matter who you are. Even if you're a Muslim, they'll still kill you because you're not the same sect of Islam as them. Like, that's how I view the White Fang. If you're not with them, you're against them, and it doesn't matter human or Faunus at this point. Now, getting back on topic, the fact that none of the kingdoms have a systemic racism problem. We see, and again, we see bullies in both Elia's backstory and Velvet when she was introduced with Cardin Winchester bullying her. We see that is a problem again. And we see people not opening their shops to Faunus. But again, we get this in Volume 5 after the Faunus caused the collapse of one of the kingdoms. And I know, again, I'm not going to say racism. I said it in the Blake character discussion. I'll say it again. I don't agree with racism. I'm not going to defend racism in real life or in Ruby. But as a narrative tool, if you're going to address racism, you got to fully commit to it and show why the Faunus are oppressed. And this is where I'm going to talk about Killmonger. In 2 minutes, 2 minutes is all it took to establish Killmonger as a viable villain and make him understandable and make his actions believable. In 2 minutes, the movie opens up and we see a milk carton. We see a milk carton strapped to the top of a basketball court's fence, and they're using that as a net. The bottom has been hollowed out of the milk carton, or not the milk crate, I should say. Sorry, not milk carton, milk crate. We then pan out to see that they're living in the ghetto. Killmonger and his dad are living in the ghetto. We then pan out further, or we turn the camera around and we see that he's living in a slumlord apartment block in Chicago in like the 90s. We then pan into the slumlord apartment that the Prince of Wakanda has been staying in, and it's legitimately a shithole apartment. That's all it took. Everything else, no dialogue, nothing, until literally Eric Killmonger says nothing, but that everything in that moment shapes Killmonger into the character who would internalize all of this hatred, all of this bigotry, all of this racism that he himself has not only felt but is showing to the white community, to the blacks, to the other communities of the world. He himself has become a racist and a bigot, and he's internalized that. He's become what he hates, so much so, and all it took was a scene with no dialogue, no dialogue from him, just simple showing of where he lived. Now, Adam doesn't get that because the Faunus don't get that. We don't get to see the Faunus as oppressed members of the community. We see them as fully active, 100% integrated members of the community. We see no systemic problems. We see that they're not segregated during the Vital Festival. We see that they're allowed to own shops. They're allowed to enjoy careers that humans are able to get. There's just nothing to say that there's nothing in the story of Ruby to say that Adam is shaped by oppression. And that's the problem, because his whole storyline is based on him feeling oppressed. Now, I also said I was going to talk about the Vulture, because I think that the Vulture also, if you want to talk about economic oppression, then we can talk about the Vulture. Again, in 2 minutes, we're introduced to the Vulture. Adrian Toomes. All it takes is one exchange to show us why he acts the way he acts, and it's that the big guys have knocked him to the ground. The whole storyline of Spider-Man is about the little guy trying to help as many people as possible, and Adrian Toomes is the little guy trying to help himself as much as possible, and we see it in one exchange. He buys a bunch of trucks, reaches too far, and then the government comes in, takes everything from him, and then he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna take what I want because I deserve it. And we don't see that out of Adam. The Faunus, again, if we're talking economically, just look at Menagerie. Menagerie is not a bad place to live. It's not a third world country. There's no ghettos in Menagerie as far as we know. There's no population problem in Menagerie as far as we know. It's just it's a tropical island with no food shortages as far as we know, and it's the only city in Ruby that doesn't have a fucking wall protecting it, which means that there probably isn't many grim problems in Menagerie as well. So realistically, and I know some people say, well, most of the island is a desert. Again, we don't see that. Blake tells us that most of the island is a desert, but she also told us Menagerie was a shithole, and when we reach Menagerie, it's not. So you need to. This is a visual media. They need to show, not tell us why the characters act why they act. They should have made Menagerie this absolute just garbage heap. Honest, literally walking like this, just shoulder to shoulder, no food, like. Oh, look at Venezuela right now. People stoning cows to death for food. Like, that's how bad it should have been in Menagerie, but it's not. They tell us everything we need to know about why Adam acts the way he does, but don't support it with evidence shown in the show, and it's a visual media, so we need to see and experience, not be told something. And this goes for everything. Like the manga is doing the same problem. They're showing us but not telling us that the Faunus are oppressed, and it's not nearly as overt because they haven't reached volume 4 yet. But the problem everywhere in Ruby, we see this problem where they're telling us but not showing us what's wrong with the Faunus, and because of that, Adam takes a massive hit as a character. So how would I fix this character? First off, it's really hard, because to fix the Faunus problem, you would need to go back to volume 2. Tucson either can't be a shop owner, or his shop needs to be scaled down to half its size. It needs to be in a slummy part of the city. There needs to be garbage around it. It needs to be. So you can't really fix the Faunus problem, because the Faunus problem has been too systematically broken by later volumes. It's just impossible to do. I first off, I'd just give him a backstory for one. Like, give him a backstory. It doesn't matter as long as he has a backstory. We then just slowly but surely start just phasing out the Faunus as oppressed. Stop having Blake address it. Maybe even have her apologize to Weiss about going back to maybe in Volume 5, have her realize that, hey, the menagerie wasn't a shithole country or wasn't this bad place to live, and that her memories of the place were from a radical's point of view. That's what I would do. Have her acknowledge her mistakes and then move on, and then we can begin to address Adam's storyline as a whole. He needs to come back and he needs to be cool, calm, collected with that very, very spikes of anger that we've seen in Volume 3. Other than that, there's not much you can do. Consistently write his power level. Get a voice director to help the guy who plays Adam so that he doesn't sound as bad as he does. It's just, right now, any storyline that's connected so intrinsically with the Faunus storyline is kind of broken. There's not much you can do with Adam because of how fundamentally broken the Faunus storyline is. And I hate to say that because I started the series really liking the Faunus and really liking Blake in general. I thought that she was a cool character. I thought that she was interesting. I thought that the backstory of the Faunus being this oppressed second class was really interesting. But because Rooster Teeth doesn't have the teeth to really address the Faunus' oppressed peoples, I just don't want them to do it anymore because it hurts the series as a whole. Anyways, Securage signing off. I hope you enjoyed the video. Amino, I know I haven't been posting much on you recently. I'm back. I'm not saying I'm back, but if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, post them into the comment section down below. Same with you, YouTubians. I love you guys. I know I haven't been posting much. Hopefully I get some subscribers, and I know that people don't like the RWBY community doesn't like hearing about the negatives of the story. And while I love RWBY, I want to see it get better, and because Miles and Carrie do listen to the community, yeah, I'm looking at you, Rose Garden and Bumblebee. I'm hoping that eventually people begin to talk negatively, or not even negatively, critically about the series, because I don't agree with someone like Fat Man Falling who says that, they should just be killing all the orphans, things like that, just absurd statements like that. I don't agree with, but I do think that we need to begin to address the real narrative problems with the series currently. Inconsistent writing, inconsistent character motivations, inconsistent character power levels, inconsistent character actions, and inconsistent character interactions. Those are all keys to writing a good series, and Miles and Carrie aren't doing that right now. So I'm hoping eventually people begin to talk critically about the series, and Miles and Carrie really understand what's wrong with the series and begin to address those problems. Because like I said, you could go back and look at my reaction to Raven as the Spring Maiden. I freaked out. I was like this close to dropping the series just instantly because it's bad. It's bad writing, and I don't want to see the series ever become that. I want to really love Remnant. I really want to love Ruby. I want to love Jean. I want to love Ren, Nora, Yang, Weiss, Blake. Even Blake. I don't like Blake right now, but I want to love Blake. I like her character design. I liked her backstory. And I know... Anyways, I'm sorry. I went off topic one more time, but what can you do? Securage signing off.